In the year 2073, the stars above Earth were no longer mysterious. After decades of quiet signals and radio listening, Earth finally made contact with the Galactic Coalition, a peaceful group of thousands of alien civilizations spread across the stars. When the invitation came, it wasn't dramatic or loud. It was simple. You are now part of the galaxy. At first, Earth was shocked, then curious. And soon, Earth joined the coalition like a small fish entering an ocean filled with strange, massive creatures. Humans were seen as newcomers, curious, weak, and a little odd. But things started to change during the galactic census. Every 10 years, the coalition sent advanced drones to scan and study each intelligent species. These drones didn't just gather numbers or names. They observed behavior, emotions, and how each species reacted to danger, kindness, and the unknown. Each species was then ranked under one of three categories: docile, peaceful and passive; aggressive, strong and territorial; predatory, deadly and dangerous. Most believed humans would be placed somewhere between docile and aggressive. After all, Earth had wars, but it also had art, peace, and healing. But when the census drone returned from Earth, the data it sent confused everyone. The drone's report said, subject species, human; behavior, unpredictable; threat level, unknown. That was strange. The drone had watched human children playing, then saw those same children shout and fight over toys. It had seen old people cry watching movies, then laugh a second later. It had watched a firefighter walk into a burning building to save a stranger's pet. He could have died, but he smiled afterward. Nothing made sense. No species acted this way. The coalition thought the drone was broken, so they sent a small research ship to Earth. A team of elite scientists from different alien races came to study humans in person. The leader of this group was Zarek of the Voral, a calm and thoughtful species with tall, silver bodies and glowing blue eyes. Zarek and his team arrived in Earth orbit quietly. They didn't make contact. They simply watched. They observed a human doctor refusing sleep for 2 days to save a dying patient. They watched a woman in a wheelchair win a national chess championship. They saw a soldier hold a crying alien child in his arms after a border accident on a space colony. Each scene made them pause. Zarek wrote in his notes, "They cry, they laugh, they break, they heal, all in the same moment." The team decided to secretly visit Earth's wilderness. There, they saw something that shook them deeply. A group of mountain hikers was caught in a snowstorm. The storm was brutal, blinding wind, freezing cold. One hiker, a man in his 40s, got separated from the group. He fell down a slope and broke his leg. The others couldn't reach him. From space, the aliens watched. Surely the man would die. That was nature. Even in advanced species, survival was about logic. The group should protect themselves. But that's not what happened. One of the younger hikers tied a rope around his waist and went into the storm. He risked his life without hesitation. He found the man, pulled him back, and dragged him up the hill, inch by inch, through howling snow. When they were finally safe, the rescuer collapsed from exhaustion. Zarek whispered to himself, "Why would he do that?" No other species the coalition had studied would act like this, risking your own life for another without gain. That wasn't logic. That was something else. Back aboard the ship, the team argued. One scientist from the Runnock race believed humans were simply emotional. Another thought they were reckless. A third believed they hadn't evolved fully, but Zarek wasn't sure. He looked at thousands of years of human history. Wars, yes, but also music, medicine, sacrifice, cruelty, but also love that made no sense to other beings. They had space. Programs not to escape Earth, but just to explore. One video caught his attention. It was an old Earth speech. A man stood in front of a large crowd and said, We choose to go to the moon. Not because it is easy, but because it is hard. Zarek watched it 3 times. He turned to the others and said, "They don't chase safety. They chase challenge." The others fell silent. To understand better, they decided to scan human brains. From orbit, they used non-invasive tech to study how humans think. What they found was surprising. Most intelligent species had clear patterns. Safety first. Avoid pain. Seek comfort. Humans? Different. Human minds had strange combinations. They could feel fear and still move forward. They could feel pain but keep smiling. They imagined impossible things and tried to make them real. No other species did this so strongly. Zarek concluded, "They are not just thinkers, they are dreamers, and dreamers can become dangerous." The coalition ordered the research team to return with a final answer. Should humans be ranked as docile, aggressive, or predatory? But Zarek said, none of these fit. Back at coalition headquarters, the tribunal met. All member species had a seat, some with fur, some with scales, some with wings. They all waited for Zarek's report. He stood calmly and spoke. "We observed humans closely. They are not driven by instinct. They do not hunt like the Vorga. They do not defend like the Selnar. They adapt. They imagine. They risk pain for hope. They risk life for love. They are not easy to understand. But that is what makes them the most dangerous of all." The chamber fell quiet. Zarek ended with these words. "They are not just survivors. They are choosers. And that makes them more than predators. It makes them potential." The tribunal hesitated. For the first time in history, they postponed judgment. What they didn't know was that Earth had already received the news about the census results. But humans didn't worry about rankings or categories. They were busy, building, exploring, loving, dreaming. Back in his ship, Zarek watched one final Earth video. It was a girl, maybe 10 years old, sitting in a classroom. The teacher asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" The girl smiled and said, "I want to touch the stars." Zarek smiled too. Perhaps, he thought, they already have. The Galactic Coalition was silent. After Zarek's strange report about humans, many leaders of different species grew nervous. They had never heard anything like this. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, and not the smartest in the galaxy. But they were something else, something different, something the galaxy had never seen before. To settle the confusion, the coalition decided to begin the Predator test. This was not a game. It was a special examination the coalition used to understand the real strength of a species. Most peaceful civilizations had never taken it. Only dangerous or mysterious species were tested this way. The Predator test had 3 parts: survival against a natural killer, problem-solving under extreme stress, moral decision in a no-win situation. If a species could pass all 3, it would be classified as Class 3 Apex, an unpredictable force. So far, only 2 species in the galaxy had ever reached that level. Now the coalition wanted to see if humans were truly as unusual as Zarek claimed. Earth received the request with surprise. Many leaders were unsure. Some believed it was an insult. Others believed it was an opportunity. In the end, they agreed, but with one rule: we will not send soldiers. We will send everyday people. The coalition was confused. What kind of species sends non-warriors into a dangerous test? But Earth was serious. They selected 5 people from different parts of the world. Maya, a teenage girl who practiced martial arts. Eli, an old chess master who walked with a cane. Dr. Olivia, a surgeon with calm eyes. Samir, a mountain guide, who knew how to survive alone. Marcus, a disabled veteran with a mechanical arm. They didn't look like warriors. They weren't tall, strong, or scary. But they all had something in common: a deep will to survive, to protect others, and to keep moving forward. The test would take place on a dangerous jungle moon called Varnox 7. It was filled with deadly plants, sharp rocks, and thick fog. But the real danger was a creature called the Zargath. The Zargath was a silent killer. It moved like a shadow, had 6 legs, glowing red eyes, and claws that could cut through steel. Many species had failed this test because of the Zargath. It was a perfect hunter. The humans were dropped onto the moon without weapons. Only basic tools, food packs, and small radios were allowed. The goal was simple: survive for 3 days and avoid or outsmart the Zargath. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. Samir climbed a tall tree and watched the jungle. "Something is watching us," he whispered. The group didn't panic. Instead, they listened. Maya noticed that birds suddenly flew away in one direction. Eli studied the ground and pointed out strange prints in the mud. Marcus built a small fire but kept it low so it wouldn't attract attention. They didn't wait for the Zargath to attack. They made a plan. Instead of running or hiding, the humans decided to trap it. Dr. Olivia used vines and tree sap to make a sticky trap. Samir dug a pit and covered it with leaves. Maya set small distractions, metal cans tied to branches that would make noise when touched. Eli watched everything with careful eyes and gave suggestions. "The creature is fast, but it still follows rules. Let's break those rules." On the second night, the Zargath attacked. It came without warning, fast like a flash. But the humans didn't run. They moved like a team. Maya led it toward the trap. Marcus shouted from the side to draw its attention. Samir waited near the kit. The Zargath jumped straight into the sticky vines. It roared, slashing wildly, but got stuck long enough for Samir to push it into the pit. The ground cracked. The beast fell, but it didn't die. Not yet. It climbed out, injured and angry. Everyone stood still. No one had weapons. Then something strange happened. The Zargath looked at them and left. Zarek, watching from orbit, was shocked. The beast never ran, never retreated, but somehow it understood. These beings were not prey. They were something more. The humans had passed the first test. The second part of the predator test was a problem, a deadly puzzle box. It had wires, lights, moving gears, and sharp darts that fired at wrong touches. Most species solved it in teams, using tools and speed. The humans stared at it. Maya was the first to try. She failed. Next was Marcus. He got close, but not enough. Then Eli stepped forward. The others were unsure. He was old and his hands shook, but Eli smiled gently. "This is like a game of chess. You must think ahead." He didn't rush. He sat down and observed. He traced the patterns. Slowly, he began to see the logic. "It punishes force," he said, "but rewards patience." Click, whir, the puzzle unlocked. The coalition was stunned. Third and final test. A moral trap. The humans found a cave with 2 cages. In one, there was a young alien child from the gentle yin species. In the other, there was a human man, clearly injured and afraid. A screen appeared. The voice said, "Choose one. Only one cage can be opened. The other will be sealed forever." It was cruel. A trick designed to test what mattered most: survival of one's own kind or the life of another. The group stood silent. Then Dr. Olivia stepped forward and said, "There is always a third choice." She and Maya worked on the locks. Marcus used his mechanical arm to create sparks. Samir smashed a rock to bend metal. Eli used his knowledge to predict how the trap might react. It took time. It took teamwork. But they did it. Both cages opened. They saved both lives. Zarek's ship went quiet. No one spoke. Later that night, the humans sat by the fire. Maya looked up at the stars and asked, "Do you think they'll understand us?" Marcus smiled. They don't have to. We understand ourselves. On the coalition ship, the final report was complete. Zarek wrote, "They beat the beast. They solved the puzzle. And they chose compassion, not sacrifice. They are not controlled by fear. They are guided by purpose. They do not hunt with teeth. They hunt with thought." That night, for the first time in history, the Predator test was passed with all 3 challenges complete. But the galaxy had no idea what was coming next, because humans were only just getting started. The news of Earth's success in the Predator test spread like fire across the galaxy. Alien planets lit up with debate. In the sky cities of the tall-winged Falari, scholars argued for hours. On the ocean worlds of the Varnan, underwater speakers buzzed in disbelief. And even on the distant mining colonies of the cold-blooded Brogoth, warriors paused their drills to watch the replay of the tests. No species had ever completed all 3 challenges of the Predator test with such skill, and none had done it with kindness. But for many, this victory was also a warning. The Galactic Tribunal, the highest authority of the Coalition, called an emergency meeting. All major species sent their representatives. The long oval-shaped chamber filled with leaders from every corner of the galaxy. Zarek stood at the center, quiet as always, his silver skin reflecting the lights above. He had become the galaxy's top voice on humans. One of the older members of the tribunal, a thick-scaled warrior from the Trakkar race, leaned forward and asked, "Do you still believe humans are more than predators?" Zarek answered softly, "Yes, they are predators when they choose to be. But unlike others, they do not kill for food, territory, or fear. They act from belief." Another voice, higher and softer, came from the gentle Sela race. "But belief is dangerous. What if that belief turns to domination?" The question hung heavy in the air. Zarek raised a hand. "We cannot judge them based on fear. We must study more, watch more, let them speak for themselves." And so, Earth was invited to the tribunal. For the first time, humans would stand in the Great Hall of Stars. The Earth delegation arrived in a small silver ship. No war cruisers, no fancy guards, just 5 people walked into the chamber calmly. They were not generals, not presidents, not kings. They were the same 5 who had taken the Predator test: Maya, Eli, Olivia, Samir, and Marcus. They stood tall, not with pride, but with peace. Maya spoke first. "We didn't come to fight, we came to listen." Eli added, "If you fear us, let it not be because of our past. Let it be because you do not yet understand us." The tribunal asked questions, many questions. Why do humans risk their lives for strangers? Why do humans cry while watching stories? Why do humans fight wars and then write songs about peace? The humans didn't give big speeches. They told simple stories. Marcus spoke of a boy he rescued during a fire, even when he had already lost an arm. Olivia told of saving an alien child during a plague with no medicine but plenty of heart. Samir explained how he once fed a wild animal, even while it growled at him. Maya told them how she trained in martial arts, not to hurt others but to control herself. Then Eli, old and wise, stepped forward. "I've played chess my whole life," he said. "Some pieces move straight, some move in curves, but every game is different. Every move has meaning." He looked around at the tribunal. "You want to know what kind of species we are, but we are not one thing. We are many. We are not simple." There was silence in the chamber. Then, slowly, one of the alien leaders stood and began to clap. Others followed, but not all were pleased. In the shadows of the chamber, the representative of the Tarnak Empire watched silently. The Tarnak were proud warriors, giants with armor-like skin and a long history of conquest. They believed only strength deserved respect. To them, this human display of peace and stories felt weak. After the meeting, the Tarnak sent a message to the tribunal. They demanded a challenge of honor, a final test, not a simulation, not a story, a real contest. The tribunal hesitated, but Earth agreed. Once again, the same 5 humans would represent their species. The Tarnak chose 5 elite fighters, trained in combat, logic, survival, and speed. The challenge had 3 parts: the Maze of Fire, a path through a dangerous environment; the Tower of Thought, a puzzle only the wisest could solve; the Choice of Truth, a moral decision with no easy answer. The Maze of Fire was set on a planet called Corin 6. Lava rivers crossed the land. Storms of ash blocked vision. Dangerous heat made even machines fail. The Tarnak moved fast, using their strength to break rocks and leap over lava, but the humans moved with care. Samir used wind patterns to find safe paths. Marcus carried Maya when her foot burned. Olivia helped the others breathe using wet cloth filters she made from plants. They reached the goal slower, but with no injuries. The Tower of Thought was a floating structure in space, full of shifting rooms and time loops. It tested memory, logic, and emotion. The Tarnak grew frustrated. They smashed doors and broke puzzles, but the rooms reset. The humans paused. Eli noticed that the tower reacted to feelings. When they stayed calm, the rooms opened. "I see," Eli whispered. "It is not testing the mind. It is testing the heart." By thinking as a team and staying balanced, the humans passed the tower. The final test was the hardest. Both teams were placed in 2 separate domes. Each dome had a button. If one team pressed their button, the other team's dome would be filled with sleep gas and they would lose the challenge. But here was the twist. If neither team pressed the button for 10 minutes, both would win. The Tarnak waited for 2 minutes, then pressed their button. The humans saw the warning light in their dome. They had lost. Or had they? Olivia turned to the others. "We could have pressed first, but we didn't." Maya nodded. "We chose trust." Marcus looked up at the camera and said, "Sometimes losing proves more than winning." The tribunal was shocked. Zarek wrote, "They were given power to destroy. They chose restraint. They faced strength with wisdom. They faced speed with care. They faced betrayal with peace. They did not need to win to prove who they are." Later that day, the results were announced. The Tarnak were disqualified for breaking the spirit of the test. Humans were praised, not just for skill, but for heart. They were officially classified as Class O, optional predators. This meant something. New. A class never seen before. They could be predators, but only when they chose to be. They were dangerous, not because they had to be, but because they had the power not to be. After the final challenge, the galaxy changed. Humans were no longer seen as newcomers. They were not just one of many species anymore. They had become something greater, respected, feared, and deeply admired. The title Optional Predators was not given lightly. It meant they had the power to destroy, but the wisdom to stop. On planets across the stars, people began talking about Earth. Stories of human courage and cleverness spread like starlight. Children on the moon worlds of Etrex acted out the Maze of Fire in their games. Pilots on mining stations whispered about the old human named Eli, who opened a thinking tower with nothing but calm words. But not everyone was happy. Some powerful species saw Earth as a threat. They believed humans would soon take over the coalition. Others, however, hoped for friendship. The Galactic Tribunal invited Earth to help create a new group called the Council of Balance. Its purpose was to bring peace to broken zones, help small planets develop, and guide new species into the coalition safely. Earth accepted, but once again they did something unexpected. They didn't send generals. They didn't send rich leaders or business owners. Instead, they sent teachers, doctors, scientists, and artists. people who built things, not destroyed them. The 5 humans who had passed the predator test also joined, not as bosses, but as guides. Maya helped train self-defense to species who had been invaded. She didn't teach to fight, but to protect. Olivia flew to sick planets and built simple clinics, teaching local healers how to cure using their own plants. Marcus designed tools for injured workers in space mines, creating mechanical arms and legs from scrap. Samir explored strange new moons, helping alien farmers survive in tough conditions, and Eli, he simply talked to leaders. He sat with them, listened, and asked quiet questions that made even the strongest rulers stop and think. In time, human wisdom spread farther than any ship. But something unexpected happened. On a planet near the edge of Coalition space, something dark stirred. It was called Korlath, a forbidden world lost during a great war centuries ago. The planet was once home to the Dravari, an ancient and violent race that had been defeated and sealed away. But now, strange signals had begun to come from the planet. Scout ships sent to check never returned. Rumors began to rise. Zarek, still. The top advisor to the tribunal brought the matter forward. If the Dravari are waking again, we must act fast, but not with fear, with wisdom. Most of the council was unsure. Who would they send? After a long pause, one voice spoke from the shadows. It was the representative of the Tarnak Empire, the same race that had lost the challenge to the humans. This time, the Tarnak leader did not speak with anger. He spoke with respect. "Send the humans," he said. "They faced us with strength, not hate. If anyone can survive Korlath, it's them." And so, once again, the 5 humans were called. They agreed to go, but they didn't go with weapons. They went with scanners, translators, medkits, and simple survival tools. The ship landed on Korlath during a silent night. The sky was red, the ground cracked, and the air was filled with ash. As they stepped onto the land, a deep rumble came from the shadows. Suddenly, a voice echoed across the land. "Why have you come?" It was not a voice from a speaker. It was inside their minds, deep and cold. Eli stepped forward and said, "We come to listen." The ground shook. From the dark hills, figures appeared. The Dravari were tall, thin, with black eyes and long arms. Their skin was like stone. They moved without sound. One of them stepped forward and said, "You are not what we expected." Maya nodded. "We often aren't." The Dravari had been asleep for many years, locked away by an ancient decision. They believed all outsiders were conquerors. But now they met humans. The humans didn't attack. They didn't shout. They didn't claim power. Instead, they sat with the Dravari elders. Olivia treated their sick children. Marcus fixed a broken water system using only wires and old metal. Samir taught them how to grow new food in poor soil. Maya played with their young ones, laughing as if nothing was strange. And Eli, he told them stories, not of war, but of peace, of choices, of finding better ways. At first, the Dravari didn't trust it, but slowly, their hearts began to open. One of the elders, a female leader named Thesra, spoke to Zarek through the humans' comms. "We were taught to destroy before being destroyed. But your humans show a different way. They are the first we have met who bring strength without fear. They are not just warriors, they are builders, teachers, healers." The tribunal waited anxiously for news. Then, one day, a message arrived. The Dravari will join the coalition, not through battle, but through hope, thanks to the humans. The news shocked everyone. A once forbidden world was now open. A species thought lost was now part of peace, because of 5 humans. The tribunal met again. Zarek stood once more at the center of the great hall. He raised a single sheet of paper. On it were words written by Eli during his time on Korlath. "We do not seek to be feared. We do not ask to be followed. We only ask to be known. And if we are known truly, you will see we are more than flesh and fire. We are spirit. We are mind. And when we choose to stand, the stars will not forget." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the tribunal made its final declaration. Earth would now hold a permanent seat on the Council of Balance. Not because they had the biggest weapons, not because they won the most wars, but because they did what no other species could. They brought back the lost. They healed what was broken. They proved that being a predator was not about killing. It was about choice, and humans, more than anyone, understood that power. The stars remembered. By the end of 2073, Earth was no longer just another planet. It had become a symbol, not for war or conquest, but for courage, change, and the strength of the human spirit. What started as a small mission in a vast galaxy had become a story every world whispered. In schools across the galaxy, students read about the humans who passed the Predator test. In spaceports, pilots named their ships after Maya, Olivia, Samir, Marcus, and Eli. And in deep space, when explorers got lost, they often asked themselves, what would a human do? Earth's seat in the Council of Balance brought new hope. With wisdom and kindness, humans worked with dozens of planets, teaching farming to dust-covered worlds, building water systems in dry colonies, and healing broken societies after long wars. But the galaxy was still wide, and not all corners were peaceful. At the far edge of Coalition space, beyond even the forgotten stars, a distress signal was received. It came from an old mining station on a floating asteroid. The message was broken, filled with static and fear. Only a few words were clear. They are coming. They are fast. Not machines. Not life. The Council of Balance gathered quickly. Many feared it was a new threat. Something unknown. Zarek, still the wise voice of the tribunal, turned to Earth's representatives. He said only one sentence: "We need your hearts again." The 5 heroes were older now, but still ready. They boarded a small ship. No weapons, no guards, just tools, scanners, and hope. The journey to the edge of known space was long and dark. The asteroid, called Cylon 9, was surrounded by silence. The mining station had no lights, no signals, and no signs of life. As the humans stepped out, the air was cold and heavy. They moved carefully. Inside the station, walls were scratched. Equipment was broken, but there were no bodies, only shadows, and empty shoes as if people had vanished into the air. Then the lights flickered, and something moved. From the dark tunnels came shapes, tall, thin, fast. Not metal, not flesh, something between. Like living shadows with glowing eyes, Maya stood in front. "We don't fight unless we must." Samir nodded. "Let's try to speak." They used scanners, translators, lights. The creatures paused, moved, then paused again. Marcus stepped forward and raised his mechanical hand. "We come in peace," he said slowly. The creatures didn't speak, but they copied his motion, raising one of their arms. Olivia ran a scan. "They're not from any known species. They're alive. But they think in images, not words." Eli smiled. "Then let's give them images they understand." He sat down. On a clear wall, he drew symbols. A circle for peace, a star for friendship, a wave for help. The creatures moved closer. One touched the wall, then drew a symbol of its own. A broken circle. "A wound?" Maya guessed. "No," Eli said. "A loss." Piece by piece, they understood. These shadow creatures were not evil. They were lost travelers from another galaxy. A great explosion had pushed them across space, through time, and into this one. They were looking for a home, but everywhere they went, they were feared. Cylon 9 had attacked them first. The miners had fired weapons. The creatures defended themselves, not with violence, but by phasing out of time. That's why people disappeared. The humans did not attack. They offered warmth, light, food. The creatures didn't eat, but they accepted the light. In time, they began to trust. Zarek watched everything from a distant ship. He sent a message. "You are rewriting the laws of first contact. Again." The humans smiled. They helped build a new station where the shadow beings could rest and learn. They called them the Velari, meaning those who walk softly in one of Earth's old languages. In return, the Velari shared their gift, folding space. They could move not just between stars, but between moments. With this, Earth and the Coalition could now reach distant planets in seconds. It was the beginning of a new age. Back on Earth, celebrations were quiet. The 5 humans did not seek fame. They returned to their normal lives. Maya opened a school for young explorers. She taught not just martial arts, but how to use strength with kindness. Samir led missions to unknown worlds, helping others survive without harming nature. Olivia trained doctors, showing them that sometimes the best cure is listening. Marcus built a lab for creating new tools, machines that could help people without hurting the planet. And Eli? He returned to a small cabin on a hill where he watched the stars and wrote stories. One of his final letters to Zarek read, "The galaxy did not need us because we are perfect. It needed us because we are human. We fall, we rise, we try again. That is our true strength." Years passed. The title given to humans remained Class O, optional predators. But it came to mean something more. It meant they could choose violence, but didn't. They could conquer, but built instead. They could hate, but chose hope. Alien children now dressed as humans during star festivals. Statues of the 5 heroes stood on Coalition planets. And on Korloth, where peace once seemed impossible, a holiday was named Human Day. In a galaxy filled with countless life forms, it was easy to fear the unknown. But Earth had proven something powerful. You do not need to be the biggest to be strong. You do not need to be the fastest to lead. You do not need to be perfect to be respected. You only need to choose right when the moment comes. In the year 2073, the galaxy gave Earth a title, the Deadliest Predators. But what they truly meant was this: the deadliest when they must be, the bravest when they choose to be, the kindest when they are needed most. And from that day on, every time a new species entered the Coalition, the first story they were told was the story of humans. Not because they were feared, but because they were understood. The end.